Hi, friends, and welcome to another edition of Keeping Up with the Jackrabbits. I'm Tyler Merriam, and on this edition, the head coach of Jackrabbit Soccer, Brock Thompson, is with us. Coach, good day to you, my friend. How are things?
Things are great, Tyler, and as always, it's always exciting to talk to you.
How are you holding up? How's life here the past few weeks under quarantine?
It's like I think everybody else's world. It feels like it's been flipped upside down, and it's kind of reinventing how we do life, both with the team and both in our own worlds and things like that. And there's been some positives. I've never felt like I've cooked more meals than I probably have in a month in my life and things like that. And so there's been some good things, and there's also been some things that time seems to be moving a little bit slower than previous years. That's for sure.
Well, I got to dig into this. Are you considered a chef by any account?
Absolutely not. Survival skills.
So, what are you making? What's the go-to at the Thompson house?
Well, my probably my favorite thing to cook is enchiladas.
Really?
But I make it a little bit like a lasagna, like where the tortillas are layered versus like actual like rolled enchiladas.
I never pegged you for an enchilada guy. That's fascinating. All right. See, that this is why we do this show, folks, to get you a behind-the-scenes look at what's happening with Jackrabbit Athletics. Now, your season, of course, wasn't going, but you certainly were in the midst of workouts. What was
Right.
it like for you and your staff to handle this scenario and communicate with your student athletes that workouts cease and you're going home and you're not coming back to campus for a while?
Yeah, well, probably the weirdest thing was our players were gone. All right, right? They were away for spring break, and so we really saw our players for the last time without realizing that it would be the last time of the semester, and so that was a little bit unique. And we just tried to communicate with them as quickly as we could, and the spring is such an important part of our development process with the student athletes and missing out on that will have a lasting effect. I mean, it will be missed time, but it will be missed time for everybody. And ultimately, I just trust our culture, and I've always felt like their players is part of the reason that we have the consistent success that we do is because our players do the right thing when they're away over summers and breaks, and they're just committed to each other and they do the right thing in those times. And I think that if there's a positive, it's that this will be a little bit of a secret to our success, just having them have to lean on our culture during this time.
You have multiple Canadian influences on your roster. How have they dealt with this? Have you noticed any differences between maybe what they're dealing with compared to what everybody else is stateside?
Yeah, I mean, they were the last ones to get back home, to be honest with you, because they had some insurance logistics, I would say, as far as when the original plan was to resume on in-person class, like if they would have left, not being able to get back into the country, and so they were actually here longer than anybody else because of that. But it's pretty much the same. I mean, when I talk to Karina and Gabby, it's pretty similar to what they were experiencing when they were in Brookings, in the middle of March.
What has this helped you appreciate more about whether it's just how you go about your daily activities as a coach or whether it's about the student athletes themselves? How has this experience so far changed your outlook on something?
Yeah, somebody asked me this the other day if I miss running, like if I miss practice. I just miss our players, and I just miss the face to face interactions. I just miss just being able to see their facial expressions and just being able to to talk to them on a regular basis and things like that. And so I think if there's anything that I've learned from it is I you know I love soccer, or I would even say I like soccer, but I love our players. And when they're away, I think that it's just made me realize that even more.
How do you try to keep up your relationships with them since those casual conversations because they're popping up in the office for something else or you bump into them at the union when you're going to get lunch, these random occurrences that help you build camaraderie aren't occurring? So how do you maintain your relationships?
Yeah, one of the things that we do every spring, or that I do every spring, is I meet with our players every week. And that's kind of a big undertaking, but we've continued to do that. So our players they get an individual phone call every week. But maybe the saving grace for us is in the spring we have 2 meetings a week. One of them we discuss a book that we're reading, and another one we typically bring in guest speakers. But we've continued to do the book discussions, and so we have you know if we were together in person, what would happen on a Tuesday morning, we would go into the champions room, and there would be 5 book discussion groups, all kind of discussing the same thing. But we did those over Zoom and continue to do those. And so that gave us kind of a sense of normalcy, and what I liked about it is it was probably about the right size of group to continue to build relationships. It wasn't a Zoom meeting with 30 people on it. It was a Zoom meeting with 3 or 4 players. And that interaction I felt like was really critical for us to continue to be able to have.
Certainly it is a struggle for everybody to deal with this because this is so unheard of in these times. It's been a long time since anything like this has occurred. I'm curious from a coaching standpoint, have you reached out to other coaches, or has anybody reached out to you just to bounce ideas off of each other of how this process works, or are you mainly just staying with your staff and talking with Andy and Kaylee?
Obviously, I lean on Andy and Kaylee quite a bit. We've reached out some. And some of it just being by chance, whether you're talking about scheduling or you're talking about players or potentially like a transfer or something like that. And the conversation inevitably always turns into, how are you handling it? What are some of the things that you're doing? The interesting thing is when this hit, everybody kind of had different schedules because spring breaks were a little bit different. And so, us at SDSU, we were kind of on the early things where a lot of other places were, they were coming back from spring break later than we were. So there were a number of people that were kind of reaching out to us to see kind of what we were doing or what we were hearing as far as that goes. But we do have a, kind of an informal Summit League soccer coaches tomorrow. And so that's an ongoing thing as far as how to navigate it and that. But really, I think, it's Kaylee, Andy, and I that just kind of really put our brain trust together and try to figure out the best way to navigate these times. And really, it's not rocket science. It's the most important thing is to stay committed to each other and to communicate and to stay connected.
And you mentioned the stay connected part. That is just the simplest thing. It's how many times you and I bump into each other in the hallway, or we pop into one of their office, and it might be a 30-second conversation. It's those things it's not unique to us. I mean, everybody all over is dealing with it, but those are the things that you never even thought about previously that really stand out. That, boy, hey, it's just not the same not being able to have this random one-off by the water fountain with Brock Thompson.
Right. I can tell you, like we go in on Tuesdays to get our mail, like having a little bit of work, like conversation, it's kind of refreshing. Even if it's just for a few minutes with Rachel or, or Austin or whoever's around.
Well, Brock, certainly appreciate the time and hang in there, and hopefully we'll be watching Jackrabbit soccer on a beautiful, sunshiny day in the very near future.
Well, there are certainly better days ahead, and I think we all know that. And obviously, it's just prayers that they come faster than it seems like it's going to come. And I know that as a bunch of Jackrabbits, we'll handle it the right way, and it'll be something we'll remember forever. I do know that, and it's definitely going to mark everybody.
Always love the positivity, my friend. For Brock Thompson, the head coach at Jackrabbit Soccer, I'm Tyler Merriam. See you next time on Keeping Up with the Jackrabbits.